Welcome to the Big Time Thinking Podcast. This content is brought to you by taking thousands of arrows right in the back and doing something about it. With winking at girls in the dark.
Get them to sign on the line which is dotted.
And get ready to scale your sales, your dealership, your business, your life, your family, and your friends with Big Time Thinking.
Put that coffee down. Coffee's for closers only.
Without further ado, here is the founder and CEO of Big Time Advertising, Terry McCauley.
Oh, have I got your attention now?
Buckle up. Reality starts right fucking now.
All right, we're back, and time for another podcast. I could not be more excited for today's podcast. We actually have our second guest here at Big Time Thinking Podcast Studios, and this gentleman's acumen speaks for itself. I've been asking him for a while now to do a podcast with me, and he did not hesitate to say absolutely no problem. So we're going to jump right in because I think we've got a guy that likes to speak as much as I do. So we may have to have a little talk.
Challenge accepted.
Okay, yeah. So this is Pete Christo. Pete Christo is the general manager for Old Hickory Golf Club in St. Peters, Missouri, close to where I live. And I've been a member now for about 6 years. This is the sixth year. I've met Pete from the beginning, and I'll let Pete kind of explain to you his growth at Old Hickory and speak to what he does more than what I can. I can tell you that when I was shopping for a country club / golf club, and you and I have talked about this a lot, Pete's the reason we signed up, my wife and I. Like his personality, the service we got there, without a doubt, was spectacular. So So Pete, I am going to just jump in, hand it over to you for a little bit here. Give us a brief synopsis of how you came to Old Hickory and the role you have now, and let us hear.
So my family is in the golf industry, and that's really how I got hooked in. Had no intention of doing golf, but got up here to St. Louis in the early 90s. My uncle, Bill Ashby, was building Fox Run Golf Course at the time and went to work for him. My grandfather had done golf courses and was from Virginia and worked all over the Midwest. I have two other uncles and a cousin that are involved in the industry, so it was just a great family fit. Started for the original owners at Old Hickory in 1996 over at Mid Rivers Golf Course. Worked my way over to finishing up the last of the construction and the grow-in at Old Hickory back in 2002. And over a period of time, just had the desire to really push the property forward and put my hat in the ring to be the general manager when they had an opening a few years later. And the rest is history, as they say. I've been the GM and director of sales there since 2005 and really have been a part of some amazing growth. We've had a new ownership group that took over. I guess we're starting our 9th year with them. And they're just a phenomenal group of local gentlemen that care about their customers first and foremost, and in turn care about their employees, care about their property, and keep reinvesting in the club. And it's really the biggest asset to have is when you have the support at the top. And so I've had a lot of opportunities to develop my skills and looking at the detail things and dealing with people, and it's been a really good fit for me personally.
Sure. So to jump in a few things there, I do want to mention, because I don't want to get off topic, first and foremost, Pete has actually become a personal friend. I think that's fair to say. And for a lot of reasons. I was a general manager at a dealership when I joined. Him and I appreciate the behind-the-scene give and take or camaraderie of quote-unquote putting up with a customer in any type of retail setting. We both are, is it fair to say, we're extremely fascinated, fixated, and possessed with customer service and what that means.
Absolutely.
Is that fair to say? We both share that interest, and so it's made our friendship more fun. We both believe in family values, strong family values that you were kind of witness to me when I was going through a divorce and some tough times and still figuring my way out with my kids being younger. But that's important to me, and I think I want people to understand that's why you and I, we've had some deep conversations about customer service, right? And then when I started my ad agency 4 years ago, Pete was my number one first customer. It was a dead tie. I've got to give it to Drew Johnson, by right over there. But I went in to see you, Pete, if you recall, to cancel my membership.
Correct. Yep.
Because when you sit down and start your own business, you can't be a member of a country club unless you're just born into it, right? And
Absolutely.
I was not born into it, and so my wife's like, she reminded me like 6 times, have you canceled Old Hickory yet? I'm like, no, I'm going to. Well, you need to, women have a way of like reminding you of everything you need to do immediately that just, So I went in with the intention of canceling, and I mean, you didn't even hesitate, which looking back is pretty humbling. Well, no, you'll do our advertising, and we also have you had the Golf Discount Association. So that's important to me. I'll give a little backstory to us and how we've grown. I no longer service the golf industry per se. I still help with Old Hickory because Old Hickory is our home, and we're silly not to. But he did mention, if you were paying attention, he came on up with the family to do the golf business. You're from where?
Everywhere.
No, where are you from originally? What's that state called down there?
Oh, well,
you
Tennessee.
know where I'm going now.
Yeah.
You didn't know where I was going with that. He's from Tennessee. I'm a huge Notre Dame fan, so he is a big Tennessee Volunteers fan, the Vols. So,
are you really going to make me remind you that the greatest comeback from a visitor in the history of Notre Dame was the Tennessee Volunteers after being down 35-7?
And you know you're a great university football program when people's greatest victory is beating you in a regular season football game.
Absolutely.
So that's when you know we're the bar.
Absolutely. We're the top of the top.
We've had more camaraderie there, I think, and fun. And I'm going to take you to your first Notre Dame game. So, okay, today's podcast, Pete, in preparing for you coming, I just decided, and you kind of already hit on it, today's topic is going to be white glove service, okay? I'm going to ask you to share this. And the reason white glove service, I think all of us, whether you've been a member of a country club of any kind, a social club, or have not been, I think it's one of those iconic things in society that immediately draws up a vision in everyone's head. Is that fair?
I think that's absolutely fair. When I first took over as the GM, I kind of jotted down some notes of what I thought needed to happen. And one of the first things that I wrote on that list was, regardless of what we think we are, what we want to be, the public's perception of a golf club / country club is a set perception. It is something that's ingrained in our society that you expect the very best of service and items when you are a part of an environment like that.
Agreed. So it's one of those established assumptions, I guess, of power, right? If you walk in a Catholic church, you just automatically kind of start whispering, right? Whatever it is. If you walk in a library, you have an expectation of a library. It has a smell of old.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
There are certain institutions, and I think a club, and for me, I grew up lower middle class. Certainly, that segment of society that we all talk about is kind of disappearing. Dad raised 7 kids, and we could never have dreamed of being a member of a club. Okay, and to us, going out to eat was like truly a treat. So for me, and I think I've shared this with you too, and this is part of being vulnerable. Even the fact that I was looking at joining a club at the time, I was like, I still pinch myself like, holy cow, right? But I have expectations because I've had friends. And the guy who just called to interrupt our podcast earlier, he grew up in a family that was members of a country club, and I would be their guest all the time. And I always remember going, man, this is the classiest place, from the way the golf balls are stacked at the driving range in the pyramid. So I don't know where, Pete, but for me at a young age, I started appreciating when someone does something right and they don't do something right. And so for white glove service, how do you define white glove service? And I'll turn it over to you for a little bit on that.
Terry, I really believe that, again, we talked about people's perception or their assumption of what it means. So I don't think you can ever get away from that core. And that core of white glove service is the 100 little things. The little details being done, the little extra details, from how shiny the floor is to how clean the silverware is, all those things. I think those are just an ingrained part of white glove service that you can never get away from.
I love that. Sorry to cut you off. Keep your thought. It's the 100 little things. See, and I'm sure someone said that before, but I love it. And is it fair to say the 100 little things don't cost an organization any more money?
No.
Huh?
No, they don't, and it's a lot of it starts with attitude. And we use the example on a golf course, for example. You're out there and you go play a golf course, and you don't know what's wrong, or you don't know what's not quite right, but you just know in your gut it was a 3-star experience.
Right.
You can't start a list, but it's those 100 little things that add up to the bigger perception or the bigger picture of what you're viewing. And it's when you're doing those 100 little things out there, the little detail work, the edged bunkers, the cart paths being edged, things that maybe you can't pick up with the naked eye as an untrained golfer, but when they're all done, you walk out of there and go, wow, what a great experience I just had. That place was one of the best places I've ever been. And it had nothing to do with how well you shot the game. It had nothing to do with anything except the overall atmosphere was a certain level.
Okay, so and the thought that crossed my mind, and this might be the perfect direction for the podcast. So you said it's the perfect rake bunkers. For us in dealership world, it's a car that's clean. Seat belts have been rolled. Right, that's an old trick, like on a used vehicle that you clean and detailed, rolling that back seat belt, right? Like to me, that's white glove service. So there's two, I think the more I think about it, there's two aspects to white glove service, and since we started with it, and it makes sense, is the physical, the product, how we present the product. So for you, obviously for the country club, it's the clubhouse, it's the locker rooms, it's the golf course. So it's all the physical. Dealership, it's the cleanliness of the windows.
I was going to say my favorite telltale sign of a dealership or any place I go to, if they care, is their gum on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Is there gum out on the sidewalk? If you're a retail business chain of any kind, a brick and mortar store, and I walk up to your store and outside your door on the sidewalk and the pavement is gum everywhere, then I know that you don't care about the little details.
The gum that's great, or the cigarette butt, right?
Correct.
So that's the physical. We're going to spend some time here. And then the other part that I probably want to spend 80% of our efforts is then the interaction with the people, which is
well, that was my part too of when I said we start with the little details, because that's the traditional view. I think where we're really at in today's society, everything is instant gratification. We're doing everything online. My daughter's back from school, got a job, and she's looking for a couch, and we're not going to stores. She's searching online to find, we're either going to get it shipped and delivered, and so everything is a lot more fast-paced. And what we're finding in today's society is it's less about things and more about experiences. So now the white glove experience just isn't having the little details done. It's the human interaction, the relationship part of whatever business you have. You need to be developing those relationships with your customers. You touched on when we first met, it was our engagement that led you to pick Old Hickory, because we had a good back and forth. We hit it off. We had a good conversation. We got your wife involved, and I just think that's where we really need to put our focus as people in the industry, that no matter what product we're selling, knowing our customers and then really servicing the customer in the sense that we're developing that relationship with them.
Okay, so from a culture standpoint, and you've done a good job, I'm sure you felt like you've had your highs and your lows as people.
Absolutely.
It's always about people. How do you, from a white glove standpoint, and we're still talking about the physical property, how do you develop that culture? I'm anxious to hear your approach. We all manage differently, but how do you create that culture when you have even a server go to the restroom and it's not their job to clean the bathroom, but they notice a guy with bad spray, one of my biggest pet peeves in the world. Like, and if you're listening, don't be that douchebag. If you know you overspray, clean it. Like, you know what I mean? Sorry, that's a whole nother thing. But right, so do you have that employee when they walk in, they see it and go, get the person that's capable of doing it, or do they just, that's not my problem, they move on, right? Because I think everybody rowing in the same direction is key. Does everybody have buy-in to the importance of the cleanliness? Because you're paying their wages anyway.
Right. So each industry is going to be a little different, right, in what you have. In our industry, we have a handful of year-round professionals that are here with us day in and day out, but the majority of our team are going to be high school, college-age kids, retirees, what we call transient workers. They're coming and going. And you pose a great question. How do you make them care? How do they buy into the culture? For us, what we do at Old Hickory is we have a servant leadership business model. I'm the least important person there. You touched on it. It doesn't matter what I preach or sell. If the people that are executing it haven't bought into what we're doing, then it doesn't exist anyway. And the way we get that is, again, through relationships. I can tell you what my kids are doing as far as where they're going to school, where they're at in their lives. We work around school schedules, things like that. So we try to get that buy-in by buying into them.
Right. And I think that's critical to what you're saying. I use the old analogy. There's a difference between being broke and poor. Being broke's no big deal. And if you're a small business owner right now, man, I don't have the budget to do the big ads. I don't have the budget to buy the fancy cups with our logos on them for you, right? That's okay, but there's no excuse for being poor, okay? And there is a difference. If I'm broke, big deal. I may be broke again. Like, that's part of life.
Right.
Being poor to me is permanent, right? You can't fix poor.
It's an attitude.
Right. It's poor spirit, poor attitude. It's like, it doesn't cost me any more money to clean the windows. In the car business, you don't know this, and I'm sure you probably see it in golf. And you clean golf carts, right? So you guys have to clean. I am amazed in the auto industry. You'd be stunned. When I first started in the cleanup department, cleaning white walls, and dude, it was a bucket of soap and a brush, right? Or cleaning the engine. It was scrubbing. Now these kids want an aerosol can to do everything. I'm being dead serious. I walked in a dealership the other day, and this kid's in the back, and I walked up to the GM. I go, how many? I'm just curious, how many bottles of window aerosol cleaner you go through? He goes, a lot. Now that you say that, I go, well, dude, your guy in the back, I don't think he's ever been trained how to clean anything. Like, he has no water back there. They just spray and wipe, right? Like, dude, it drives me nuts. So spend a little bit more time there, and then we can move on, because I do want to spend the majority of our time in personal space, but and then you're the leader, and I'm neurotic about it. Sometimes I think maybe I'm overkill, but like, I don't think you can ever spend too much time cleaning or straightening. Like, does that make sense? Like, I think it's okay to be super neurotic about it.
Well, it's leadership by example, for sure. If on the golf course, how we were brought up, my uncle, if you don't drive by a piece of trash, right, and that tells you a lot about if that person's bought into your crew. Are they going to drive by that candy wrapper, or are they going to stop and pick it up? And when you're driving by a candy wrapper as the GM or the owner or a manager, and you drive by it, well, that sends the message loud and clear to everybody else. It's okay to drive by the candy wrapper. It's okay not to care. And so leadership by example, jumping in and doing those things. We've got a situation, Old Hickory, where one of the owners of the club, Gary Hill, he will wipe down the bathroom counter every time he leaves that bathroom. And that sends a message. He cares. At the highest level, he's doing something that's a menial task, which is wiping off the excess water and soap on the counter. And it's a habit for him. He does it every single time he walks through there. But it's just a great example of caring and demonstrating leadership by example.
Yeah, and that's good to hear from a leader. There is no menial task, right? At the end of the day, for me, I love to go out and line up cars with the guys, because I like, it was that important to me. So I'm glad we've spent some time there, because I can't emphasize it enough. There's a dealership that comes to mind that I visited all the time, and in the front, like leaves fall off the tree in the fall, right? At his front entrance, where the wind gathers, always behind his bushes, he's had leaves there for maybe 2 years. And I'm being serious. Like, and he's a client, so for a while I'm polite, and I'm like, okay, well, it's winter, maybe he'll get it. Then spring's here. Those leaves didn't show up in the spring, right?
Right.
And then and you've been around me. I'll use sarcasm, like, hey man, you guys have leaves falling down here in the spring? Like what? I was like, well, dude, I've been walking by those for 2 years, and like, can we just get them? And I eventually got a bag, and I got them myself, because they drove it. It wasn't even my dealer, right?
Right.
And then another one, I just shot a video with a sales guy. He's their #1 sales guy in Opelika. And this is something that's tough too, is we sometimes let our star performers, whoever they are, get away with shortcuts, right? I think that's another issue, and I don't know, you have way more employees than I do at the time. I used to have that many, but this guy's shirt, dude, had more stains on it. Car people are the worst, and you can be too. You got to watch it like just the apron when people are serving. Do we hang on to the apron too long? Is it time to pitch it and say, you know what, dude, if bleach isn't cutting it, like, let's spend $12 and get another, because our appearance matters. Our shirts tucked in, are they? Go ahead.
And all that goes into the 100 little things. All those little things add up to an overall appearance or experience that can downgrade what the customer feels when they walk into your dealership. It does matter that there's stains on the shirt. They may think it doesn't because he's the best salesman they have, and who really cares about that? I'm here to buy a car. But I'm telling you, in the psychology of buying and the psychology of relationships, all giving, all sales, it's all reciprocal in nature. You've got to develop that, and those little details do matter.
Ding, 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 ding. And I love it. It's in the psychology. And here's what I was always neurotic about as a manager. Not the ones who left me reviews, good or bad, right? Because I've always thought people who leave reviews are a little weird. Like, in general. The good reviews are typically someone begging you, hey, dude, will you give me some good reviews? I need them. It's like you turn to a friend. I'm going to ask Pete to give us a great review on our podcast. And he will, because he's a friend, right? But then the bad reviews are people who, they're so pissed, they just go home, and I think they're serial bad review givers, right?
There are out there.
If you ever look at their on Yelp, I love it. They'll tell you how many reviews they've left, and you go look at all the reviews, like, damn, this guy is never happy.
Correct.
Right. So, but I was worried about the person who doesn't speak up, right? And we all are different. What's important to Terry McCauley doesn't matter to Pete Christo. Is that right?
Absolutely.
So, all right, we've spent enough time on the cleanliness side, but that's where white glove starts because it's a perception, man. And you talk about keeping your place clean. It's easier to keep it clean if you already have it clean. I will tell you as a customer, if I walk in a quote unquote shithole, right, and I miss a little bit with a piece of trash, these guys don't care here.
Right.
So you can get buy-in from your customer too.
Absolutely. On a golf course with members in particular, if you think about it, when you have a group or an ownership group that isn't investing in the property, then the membership's not going to invest in it. In our case, we've got an ownership group that has continually poured funds back into the property to upkeep it, and now we've got membership buy-in. People are out there, they care about the ball marks, they care about the piece of trash, they're helping you, they're teamed with you, it's all part. And I don't care if you're a dealership that sees somebody once or 3 times every 10 years to buy a car, but they can still be bought in with you. You don't know what they do when they leave your dealership as far as talking about you and praising you. And your customers are your best source of advertising and generating that relationship. And I keep coming back to that word relationship, but I'm just a core believer in that. You've got to develop those relationships with your customers, even ones that you may not see again for 4 or 5 years. Because what they're doing for you, potentially, between year 1 and 4 years later when they come back for another car, can be invaluable.
Or the one who can't even afford the country club, thought they could, or can't afford the car. I hate when I hear businesses go, oh, well, that was a stroke. That was a waste of time. Well, I can tell you, if we did it right, white glove, that person could sell you 10 and you don't know it. And they never
even
show
if they
up
never
again.
joined, right? Because
and
the experience they had.
That's the multiplier that people miss out on.
Right.
Okay, so then moving in, and I told you we could talk. You and I will spend time on stuff, but I want to spend time now on the personal experience, right? And I think this is like it's equally as important, if not more. And you know, white glove service is personal, it's complete, and it's different from everything else. But that personal part is important. You know what's one of my biggest pet peeves is when you walk up. This happened at a hotel, and you know me, I like to point stuff out, and or sometimes you're having a problem as a customer. And you're just trying to tell them you're having a problem. Like, I'm not complaining. I just want to tell you, hey, I've got a small issue, right?
By the way, as soon as you say you're not complaining, they've already tuned you out, most people.
Right. But that's sad.
It is.
Right? And I don't know where we've gone this route in service industry, and it goes on in dealerships, like you guys work on the service counter. You just assume everybody's pissed off and mad. And I don't know if it's because we've had a bad experience with one customer and we allow it to manifest to everybody, and that's an issue. But like, that's my biggest pet peeve, is how we talk to people with respect. And sometimes it's words, like trigger words for me, and we could do a whole other podcast on the power of words, because that is white glove service. But one of my biggest pet peeves, and I know it's territorial, but I hate when I'm new and don't know someone and they refer to me as buddy, right? Like, hey buddy, like, dude, it's like a trigger on me. My wife knows it. She's like, oh God, he called you buddy. Like, to me, it's like the most rude thing you can say. Like, to me, it's
impersonal.
Yeah, they probably don't mean it as a smart ass. It's probably ingrained in their head. Hey, buddy.
Right.
I'm like, dude, I ain't your buddy.
Right. Buddy,
so anyway,
chief.
go ahead.
Yeah.
Spend some time, because I think you guys do a great job. It's the power of persuasion, really, when you think about it. But you can tell people no without telling them no.
Well, absolutely. And you know, we talked a little bit earlier in the podcast about experiences, and it really is where I think our society's headed. People are more focused on their experience and less on the value, meaning I want to go out and have a great time with my family. I want the experience to be good. It doesn't matter how we drove there and what house we came from, etc., but it does matter the experience we have. I think people, especially millennials aren't buying homes, it seems like, at the same pace that we were brought up, that all your value is tied into home. They're living in different situations, but they're traveling and they're going to places and they're doing things. And the golf industry, for one, got scared about millennials not participating in golf because it takes too long. And I'm one to always steer into a problem, not run from it. And I say, hey, you know what? It does take 4 hours to play around in golf, but it's 4 hours. It's pretty tech free. You don't have your phone constantly going off. You can build relationships with clients and customers. And for the millennials, it turns out they love that kind of experience. They're being able to get on the golf course and get away from, they're in their computers. They're the guys that work here for you that are doing all the audio and video work for you. They're in this cubicle and they're doing this work all day and they're great at it. But when they go out of here, man, they're living life. They're having experiences. And I think that's a big thing about the relationship part of it. When I walk through the club and I touch tables and I talk to members, that's intentional. I happen to enjoy it. I happen to truly care about their experience with us.
It fits your skill set too.
Right. But that to me is what is the next level of setting it off. When you have that relationship, and then that feeds down to the employees, right? They see me doing it, now they do it, and all of a sudden we don't have that old school traditional club white glove service of, hey, don't speak unless you're spoken to. Now we have people engaging with, and servers are talking to the members' kids and know what they like to eat and drink, and it just creates a much better family-friendly atmosphere.
Okay, so big time thinking. I am hyper focused on selling too. So let's talk about that, because you guys sell weddings, right? That's a big part, probably the only money maker in what you do. And they're big ticket items. They would be equivalent to a guy spending $50,000, $100,000 on automobile. It's a big purchase.
Correct. Yeah.
And how you go about, we can menu selling versus, I can't imagine dealing with moms. Or I'm curious, are the brides worse or the moms? Or does it just depend? Typically,
the mothers, in my view, most brides, especially in this day and age, most of them have it together. They really do. The term bridezilla, I think, is an unfair. Somebody used it maybe on one of those reality shows one time. Okay. It stuck. But it can be the mothers. I think a lot of times they're more nervous for their daughter than the daughter is.
But and we're going to go over our normal 30. But it's I want to finish with this because it's too important not to. But that experience of a wedding, and you guys do outdoor weddings, so it can rain, it can ruin it, right? And honestly, a wedding if it's their first one, it's like the most important thing. It's up there.
It only happened once.
It's up there with the birth of a child, right? It's up there. It's like a 10 on a scale of 10. And so, and you guys get good reviews, but what is it? How do you train? How do you go about that white glove service? I'm fascinated with, because you're like in the car business. If someone asks, hey, where's your restroom? In any business, if I see that hand go up, I always called it the armpit treatment.
It's the Walmart point,
right? If I see their arm raised, I go off. Like, dude, walk. I don't care. Walk them to the restroom and open the door.
Right. Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but in selling weddings, because that's very similar to overcoming objections. And I've always said customers don't have objections; they have concerns. Mm-hmm. They become objections when we ignore concerns, right? They're concerned about it raining on their wedding day. But if we act like, oh, don't worry about it, and then when it does, it's an objection. It's a major objection because they haven't been prepared how to handle it if it does.
Right. I tell the team all the time that a customer will forget something that wasn't quite right, but they'll never forget the way we handled it. And I use the steak analogy. Steak comes out a little too overcooked for somebody, and maybe it was perfect to the chef, but it comes out a little overcooked. That's not the problem. The problem is, how does that server, and then in turn the management, how do we handle it? It would be the same with going into a dealership. If you have somebody that has a bad experience or feels something wasn't quite right, how they're treated, how you handle the problem bears more. And it's the same in the wedding business for us. I tell people all the time, there's lots of choices in our community of places to hold weddings. But to me, the difference maker is the team that we have, the experience. Jen Champion, who does our sales, has been with us, I think, 12 years now selling weddings. I tell clients when I meet them is that we've got a team that knows how to hit the curveball. Anybody can hit it when it's sitting on a tee. You talked about it didn't rain, so that's hitting it off the tee.
Right.
What happens when the forecast is rain? You want to have a team in place that has the experience to hit the curveball. And then I like to add on at Old Hickory, I really think with our team, we've got people that can even hit the nasty slider. Like, we've got a team that you're not going to feel the bumps and bruises, anything that's going on behind the scenes, because we've dealt with this before. And that's where the professionalism of what we do, hosting those weddings, having the serving staff that we have, the kitchen staff that we have, and then collectively them working together as a team.
Right. And that's good, because I will tell you, even in the dealership business, and this comes from leadership. You've got to prepare for the process, But when you have that tough customer or things don't go right, the brand new Harley, the brand new car that just everybody loves it and it's new, and it's mechanical, things go wrong with something mechanical, right? Like, and I've heard it from a customer, this is a $100,000 car, what the hell is it doing in your service department? Well, NASCAR has $1 million cars, and why do they lose? Because they break down. Right. So, but the key, and you hit on it, and we'll spend a little more space there, is too many people run around with their hair on fire, and I think that's why you're successful, and I know I have been. I'm a better performer when the place is on fire.
I fall into that same category as well.
Actually, I struggle, I think, when everything's rocking and rolling, it's easy. People are like, where's Macaulay? Is he doing any work? I'm like, no, I'm not really, I don't feel fucking challenged.
Right.
It's sad. But then people do look to me when it's crazy. I'm like, dude, just chill out. This is what we got to do next, because I'm a better problem solver. But, because I've always used that analogy, any retail business, and yours is certainly, or service business, that area out front where anytime a customer can visually see us, if we were going to a Broadway play, that's the stage, right? It's theatrical. Things need to happen from a timing standpoint. There's a way to tell a crowd to be quiet as opposed to getting the mic. Hey, can everybody be quiet, please?
Right.
Or dim the lights and then bring them right back up.
Right.
People naturally. So, and that's that experience. So I wanted to summarize a couple things, Pete, and I appreciate you coming in here on the fly to do this. I kind of put you on the spot. Hey, we're doing a podcast. But I think the white glove service, if I was going to give you some takeaways, you've got to create memorable moments, okay? And the memorable moments, you've got to spend some time thinking about your business. Where do those memorable moments happen? I know where they are in the car business. Taking delivery of that car is very memorable, right? Or someone who's nervous with bad credit getting approved is a very memorable moment, okay? Now, it's not for everybody. It's a guy with 800 credit doesn't care about when he was approved.
Correct.
So, and same for you. You probably have different demographics of your people that do weddings. Some don't give a shit what the price tag is, and some of them, it's a major ordeal. Some people are probably taking a home equity loan on their house so their kid can get married, and we just take it for granted. Oh, big deal. No, it's a big deal, dude. So you've got to create memorable white glove service moments. I literally used to do this in the car business, and my cleanup thought I was nuts until they realized it. So I always had sales guys, when they're ready to deliver the car and hand the keys to the customer, they were to walk the customer out, but only when cleanup knew that you were going to do it. So cleanup was standing by the car, and I wanted them to have a bottle of solvent and a clean rag. And they were not to speak to the customer unless the salesperson asked them to do it. And while they walk out, you're to be walking their car looking for little spots. And even if it's already clean and there's nothing to clean, I want you to wipe the car twice, a minimum of twice.
Yep.
Just
it's
pick
a great
spot.
finishing touch.
Right? And so we did that, and people were like, man, you guys are really, our delivery scores were the best, through the roof on surveys. But I even tried to take it one step further. There was one cleanup guy go, hey, right when they're pulling away, wave your hand, stop for a second, like you just noticed one last spot, and then let them go. That's over the top. Now, don't be a liar. But I guarantee you they remember it. I raised my kids this way because we want memorable. When we never remember, I can't remember much of anything I got for Christmas, but I can remember our traditions of how we did Christmas. Vacations, it wasn't a gift I got. It was the experience, right? And so it's the same with our customers. If you really want white glove service, you've got to create memorable white glove moments. And guys, spend some time in that space and figure out what they are and make that experience over the top. At the Harley store I ran, we hit the gong. And I literally came out in the showroom and I yelled out loud, ladies and gentlemen, can I have your attention, please? Pete Christo just bought a brand new Harley Davidson. And the whole place would clap. The first time I did it, early on, people thought I was holding the place up. Like, who the hell is this guy? But it got to where people that we didn't do it for would come in my office, hey, they want to talk to you. I'm like, oh, God, what are they mad about? We sit them down, thinking we have a major issue, and Pete, I promise you, they go, well, we didn't get to hit the gong, right? Because it was a memorable experience.
Right.
So I hope, that's my challenge for you at Old Hickory is don't forget about the little celebrations that are worth celebrating. You know, that sometimes we think, man, big deal. And like I said, they're free. Yeah, we pay out for a hole-in-one at the golf club, but what if we put their picture in a little frame in the hallway for a week? You know, whatever it is free that people go, man, I'll never, because not everybody can win the parking spot for a year. That's always the best golfer. But the piece of shit golfer like myself, damn it, I just want a plaque on my locker one day. I've lost every tournament there. I'm the worst golfer ever.
That's all right.
No.
You know, Terry, I did an exercise this winter. It had been on my mind to do for a while, and that was I literally did handwritten thank you notes to every single member. And I personalized them all as well. It wasn't just a script that I just wrote out of, 300 and whatever thank yous. I took the time and sat down and did that this winter. I can't tell you how how well received that was. I had so many people walk up to me and just say, "Wow, that was a great touch." And talk about an old school thing. People don't take the time to do those handwritten thank you notes anymore. Now I'm on the hook to follow up with that next year and either do it again or come up with the next level. And I don't mind that challenge, but it really went a long way. So I had a mentor years ago when I was just getting out of college and worked for him during college and high school, and he made a comment one time that, Pete, it only costs a little more to go first class. And I think you touched on that early in the podcast. The amount of investment in your business to do the right little things, to sit and write hand notes, that's not costing you a whole lot.
You've already spent all the money. Now do it, right? And when you did your notes, I do remember because Lori got it through the mail. And I remember she goes, "Man, boy, Pete is a class act." And I saw it, and I'm infatuated with the process. I go, "I guarantee he has a stack of them on his desk, and he's doing them." And sure enough, I came in and you were. And I told you, but great. Like, that was a big deal to my wife. She's like, "Man, this, and you never know where the next cancellation's coming or who it's going to affect." I have that saying, some will, some won't. So what? Someone's waiting. Do it, right?
Right.
So there's one last statistic, and we're going to tie it up unless there's something you can give us some closing thoughts. But Bain & Company, who's a huge consulting company across the country in business space, this percentage for me is important for all of us to listen. If you pick up one thing from this podcast and you think you do a great job, and all they do is survey customers and businesses, and they consult them all over. But 80% of customers on their research, 80% of companies like yours and mine, Pete, 80% of the companies out there say they deliver a superior customer experience. If you were to ask me, we do a superior job at big time advertising. If I was to ask you, you would think Old Hickory does a superior job. You out there think your dealership's doing a superior job. 80% of all businesses, if they are asked, think they do a superior job. Now here's the scary number. They survey those same people's customers. Only 8% of their customers agree.
Did you say 8?
8.
Wow.
If you were to survey your customers, only 8%. Now that's the national average. You might be doing a great job and you're 12. Think about that for a minute.
Wow.
Okay? So...
Well, I think that goes to the example then, Terry, of you can be an also-ran. So you think you're doing great, but you're doing what every other dealership's doing. And that's not going to set you apart. That's going to get you 8% being like everybody else. And even if everybody else is delivering the same level of service, and I think it goes to your point about the white glove service, the little touches, the little extras, the little extra human interaction with the client, that's how you're going to get into the double digits on that customer response. You can't just be as good as everybody else.
Absolutely. This almost should be posted to every business in the back somewhere.
That's a scary statistic.
Only 8% of our customers agree. So I saw that. I was like, oh my God, how scary is that, dude? Like, that's scary. So, but if you're someone who says, "Oh, well, you do a good job," and you just brush it off, that's big time thinking, in my opinion. You've got to be able to challenge yourself. You're not perfect. I'm not. No. And I can point to certain clients I know have failed. And there's probably some that are great clients of mine and I don't spend enough time with, and I know it. But we take for granted the customer who is our perfect customer, right? The perfect customer we make the biggest profit on. They never complain, and we probably do the least amount for them. And that's not right either, right? So keep that in mind. I do know this. Every company's greatest asset is your customers. Bottom line. And you've got to figure out what your white glove service is. Whatever that is, you've got to figure it out and come up with a process, know about your stuff. And you've got to be willing to find ways to make your product and service better. Because there is a way to always... I always tell everybody here, there's no such thing as a perfect creative. There's always next level, okay? Even when you think you've done a kick-ass job, there's always next level. Our greatest asset is your customer. And if you don't believe me, just pay attention to Wall Street, right? Amazon's, they lost money for years. They're starting to make money now. The Facebooks, the Twitters, all their value is their customer databases. That's what they're investing in. Man, they got a lot of customers, okay? That is your biggest asset. It's not us. As much as we think, Pete, man, they couldn't live without us. It's amazing. We walk away and every business is
well,
living.
In our case, in particular, in the country club world, the golf club world, we have nothing without our members. I tell people when they're looking at joining all the time, anybody can build a new fancy building. Anybody can tweak up a golf course and have it look great. But what really makes a club are the people inside. We don't have a business without them. And it's truly a partnership. And I my door is always open for our members because we want that feedback. And I would think at a dealership, you talked earlier about people avoiding interaction. It's the wrong way to approach it, because if someone cares enough to bring something to you, you have a chance with them. You haven't lost them.
Right.
My worst case nightmare scenario is that Somebody's unhappy with something, they never share it with me. It grinds on them and grinds on them. One day they just quit because they weren't happy with that thing. And we never had a chance to recover. We never had a chance to deal with it. I tease all the time. I don't take any problems at the club lightly, but they are all first world problems. It's in a country club in St. Peters, Missouri, in the United States. There's nothing that happens wrong at a dealership, at the country club.
You and I have talked about first world problems.
That people can't sit down and figure out, but you've got to have that channel of communication.
And I always picked on salespeople in sales meetings. I said, hey, this could have gone this way. And they would say, well, they didn't. They're happy. I'm like, you don't know that. You don't. Right? And this 8% tells us that. And my last analogy, like I was thinking of this, is you could have an average like business, right? A very average business, and maybe the place is starting to be run down a little bit, and it burns to the ground. Okay? And rebuild it with a new, beautiful Taj Mahal. If the business still sucks, it sucks. It's not about how beautiful the building is, right? You can recover from the ashes and think you're kick-ass again, but if you still have the same rotten people that don't understand the customer's rule, you're no better than when you were, right? So at the end of the day, and I've worked for dealerships where when I first took over the big St. Charles Motorsports, we never had fancy. Honestly, we worked out of cubicles. The Taj Mahal doesn't make anything. It's the interactions and relationships. Enough on white glove service. Any closing thoughts on it?
I will give a little golf analogy maybe, and that is, if you asked any golfer, a guy could go out and shoot a 59, and if you asked him, he left shots on the golf course. So remember, you touched on it. You're never done with your business. You're never done growing it. You're never done improving it. It can always be better. And I think the people that are in your industry with the car dealers, it's those guys that are taking those extra steps and continually looking for those next extra steps, using a business like yours to make sure they're reaching the right customers. That's what's going to set you apart.
Well, there you have it, guys. Thanks, Pete, for being our guest today. Big time thinking, white glove service. Give it some thought. Give it some time. Spend some space there. How can you make your business better to feel more white glove, right? We all know what white glove means. Go make it happen in your dealership's business. I promise you, it will take you to the next level. Do it in your own marriage. What's white glove to your own spouse, right? Like, do it better. If you're supposed to empty the dishes, don't do half of them. Do them all, right? White glove your life, and you will be. Grant Cardone calls it 10x. Maybe my thing is white glove your life. With that being said, thanks for listening. This is one of our longer podcasts, but it was valuable information. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud. Please like, share, leave comments. We need it. We're growing. Go out there and have a kick-ass week, everybody. It's big time thinking, big time every time.